good day. Beautifully underestimated masterminds in disguise. Yeah, I'm talking about you. The one everyone labeled slow, awkward, confused. The one they thought didn't get the joke. The one they rolled their eyes at in group chats, talked over in meetings, ignored in classrooms, sidelined in the family, left on scene while they laughed with each other. They thought you were clueless. They thought you were harmless. They thought you were background noise. And you played along. You let them think you didn't notice when they cut you off mid-sentence. You let them think you didn't hear when they said, "They don't really understand how this works," right in front of you. You let them think you were lost while you were quietly mapping the entire maze. You weren't clueless. You were collecting data. You weren't weak. You were loading ammo. You weren't behind. You were building something they were too arrogant to see. And now we're at my favorite part. The flip. Because here's the thing about acting clueless. It exposes everyone else. It shows you exactly who they really are when they think you're no threat. The fake friends start talking reckless. The mentors stop pretending to care. The family members drop the mask and say what they really think. The co-workers let their ego hang out in the open. And you sit there with your little "I don't know" face, while inside you're thinking, "I see every single one of you." You know what's wild? People seriously believe intelligence is just how fast you answer a question, how loud you speak, how many buzzwords you throw around. They think confidence is volume. They think leadership is domination. They think winning is showing off. You learned a different game. You learned to sit in the back and watch who interrupts who laughs too hard at certain jokes, who gets uncomfortable when someone else shines, who only texts when they need something, who suddenly goes quiet when it's your turn to talk. They thought you were clueless while you were building a mental file on every single one of them. Look at your life for a second. Really look. Think about all the times you toned yourself down so you wouldn't make it awkward. All the times you pretended not to know the answer so they wouldn't get insecure. All the times you stayed silent because you knew if you spoke, it would expose how flimsy their confidence really was. You thought that was weakness. It wasn't. It was restraint. And restraint is terrifying in the wrong hands. Let's talk about that moment, because you know it's coming when you flip the script. Not the movie version where you stand on a table, scream some dramatic monologue, and everyone gasps. No. Real life isn't that theatrical. Real life is quieter, more surgical, more ruthless in a subtle way. The script flips when you stop explaining yourself. The script flips when you stop defending your worth to people who already decided you're beneath them. The script flips when you stop playing along with their, "Oh, you probably don't understand, let me explain it," routine, and you build your own thing, your own skill set, your own lane, away from their circus. One day they're going to look up, and the person they used to baby talk, joke about, overlook, is suddenly not in the room. You're not at the table begging for a seat. You are the table somewhere else. They'll scroll and see your name attached to something real. A result, a project, a brand, a number, an achievement, a life upgrade. Something they cannot ignore, no matter how badly their ego wants to. And in that moment, they won't be able to process it. Because in their heads, you're still that clueless one who asked a dumb question that one time. They froze you in that moment. They never updated the file. But you did. You updated every single version of yourself while they were entertained by the old one. Let's be brutally honest for a second. You were hurt. Deeply. Being underestimated is not cute. It's not some pretty Instagram quote. It's humiliating. It hurts when someone talks to you like your brain is a half-charged phone. It hurts when you know you have so much inside and nobody takes you seriously. It hurts when your ideas are ignored until someone louder repeats them, and suddenly they're brilliant. You went home some nights and replayed conversations like a crime scene. You felt that knot in your throat, that burn in your chest. You held back tears in public bathrooms. You wondered, maybe I really am the problem. Maybe I really am slow, stupid, behind, not good enough. That's the dangerous part. Not them underestimating you. You underestimating yourself. Because once you buy into their story, you start sabotaging your own. You stop trying. You stop learning. You start shrinking to fit the box they shoved you in. You over-explain every little thing. You apologize for existing. You say sorry for taking up space. Look at me. You are not stupid. You're not clueless. You are not behind. You are a slow-burn weapon in a world obsessed with fireworks. You're nuclear in a world of sparkles. Your problem was never that you didn't know enough. Your problem was that you didn't realize what kind of power you were holding by playing clueless. Because think about it. What did acting clueless give you? It gave you access. People let their guard down around you. They spoke freely, thinking you wouldn't catch the undertones. They showed you what they really think of people like you. They revealed their strategies, their insecurities, their blind spots. You've been sitting on a gold mine of information about human behavior, power dynamics, manipulation, insecurity, ego, all of it. And you thought you were just awkward. No. You have been studying the game from the inside. So here's where the flip really happens. It's not about proving them wrong. That's too small. If you live to prove people wrong, you're still letting them write the script. The flip is when you stop needing their recognition at all. The flip is when you realize, I am not here to convince anyone I'm not stupid. I'm here to build such a brutally undeniable life that whether they think I'm dumb or not becomes irrelevant. You want emotionally triggering? Here it is. Some of the people who laughed at you will never respect you, even when you win. Some of the people who underestimated you will rewrite history in their heads and pretend they always knew you had potential. Some will stay silent, watching, hoping you fail so their original judgment doesn't look as bad. You don't get justice from them. You get justice by becoming so far removed from their level that their opinion feels like a review from a random anonymous profile online. Background noise. You know what you do with background noise? You work through it. You sleep through it. You ignore it. Let me ask you something. How many hours have you wasted replaying conversations with people who wouldn't survive a single day in the storm you're built to walk through? How much mental energy have you burned trying to craft the perfect explanation of, no, I'm actually smart. I'm actually capable. I'm actually trying. They're not listening. They weren't listening the first time. They liked you better as the clueless one, because that made them feel superior. They need you to be small, so they can feel big. So what do? You stop feeding their illusion. You stop dumbing yourself down. You stop laughing at disrespect disguised as jokes. You stop explaining your grind. You stop posting for validation. You start posting results. If you even bother posting at all. You redirect every ounce of that anger, that embarrassment, that humiliation into something constructive and lethal. Skill, While they're busy showing off, you're busy downloading entire skill sets at 3 a.m. While they're gossiping about who's doing what, you're dissecting your own habits. While they're flexing, you're building. While they're comfortable, you're evolving. That's the real plot twist. Not one dramatic moment, 1,000 quiet ones. You closing the tab and opening a course. You putting your phone on Do Not Disturb and actually focusing. You journaling your patterns instead of doom scrolling. You hitting the gym when your brain is screaming to stay in bed. You saying no to another useless hangout with people who don't add anything to your life. That's you flipping the script in real time. Second by second, decision by decision. You know what flipping the script really means? It means you stop being the clueless one in your own story. It means you stop letting life just happen to you and start orchestrating it. Newsflash, nobody is coming to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I think you're secretly brilliant. Let me invest in you." They're not coming. They're comfortable thinking you're clueless. It keeps their world tidy. So, you do the messy thing. You become the version of you that contradicts every lazy assumption they made. You become sharp. You become disciplined. You become intentional. You become the person who pays attention to details about yourself, the same way you've been paying attention to details about everyone else. You've watched how they move. Now it's time to decide how you move. Let's get specific. Think of one area where you've been playing clueless in your own life. Money? You pretend you don't get finances, so you just avoid looking at your account, avoid planning, avoid learning. Relationships? You pretend you don't understand why you keep ending up with the same type of people, so you don't set boundaries, you don't walk away, you just say, "I don't know, it just happens." Career? You pretend you're confused about what you want, so you don't commit to learning one thing deeply. Don't push past discomfort. Don't risk failing. Stop. You're not clueless. You're avoiding responsibility. That's the other side of this. Yeah, people underestimated you. They played you. They misjudged you. But you've also been underestimating yourself, playing yourself, misjudging what you're capable of. Flipping the script on them is fun. Flipping the script on yourself is transformation. You don't need to go to war with them. You need to go to war with that version of you that keeps saying, "I don't know," when you haven't even tried to find out. You need to go to war with the lazy voice that says, "It's too hard," before you've even done the first rep, read the first chapter, sent the first email, made the first attempt. You need to go to war with the clown mask you wear for yourself, not just for others. You acted clueless as a defense mechanism. Cool, it worked. Now it's time to retire that character. You're not obligated to keep playing the role just because they got comfortable with it. You owe them nothing. Not the old version of you, not the people who benefited from it. Picture this. You walk into a room with the same people who once talked down to you. They make the same little jokes, the same subtle digs, expecting the old reaction, but something's off. You don't shrink. You don't justify. You don't overshare. You don't nervously laugh along. You just look at them with a calm, almost amused expression and let the silence sit for a second longer than usual. Inside, you're thinking, you genuinely have no idea who you're talking to anymore. That's the flip. Not yelling, not snapping, not throwing a tantrum, just quiet, unshakable certainty in who you've become. You become the danger in the room without raising your voice. Because here's a secret. When you really know what you're capable of, you don't have to announce it. When you've done the work, when you've transformed in private, when you've bled for this new level of you, you don't need them to clap. Their reactions become interesting, not important. You watch who suddenly becomes nice, who suddenly wants to catch up, who suddenly always believed in you. You won't even be mad, you'll just see it clearly. Clarity is your superpower. That's what your Clueless act gave you without you realizing. Clarity. You now know who respects you and who just tolerates you, who loves you and who loves your weakness, who supports you and who supports your silence. Now you choose. You choose who gets access. You choose who gets a front row seat and who gets blocked at the door. You choose where your time goes, where your focus goes, where your energy goes. And if that means people call you cold, changed, different, distant, good. You were never meant to stay in the role they cast you in. You were never meant to be the comedic relief in their storyline. You are not the side character. You are not the NPC. You are the one who took every insult, every doubt, every little their kind of slow comment, and turned it into fuel, not just to prove them wrong, to design a life where their opinion doesn't even fit in the frame anymore. So here's the challenge. From this moment on, you stop saying, "I don't know," when you actually mean, "I'm scared." You stop saying, "I'm just clueless," when you actually mean, "I'm afraid to try and fail." You stop saying, "I'm confused," when you actually mean, "I haven't sat down alone with my thoughts and been honest." You don't get to keep the mask and demand a different story. You want a different story? Flip the script with your actions. Read the book instead of scrolling. Learn the skill instead of complaining. Make the plan instead of waiting. Say no instead of forcing a yes that drains you. Leave the room instead of begging the room to like you. Let them whisper. Let them underestimate. Let them stay stuck in the outdated version of you. Because while they're doing that, you'll be busy making their old script completely irrelevant. Because once that script is irrelevant, you stop being emotionally chained to their version of you. You start to notice it in small moments first. Tiny, almost boring things. You wake up, and that heavy voice that used to say, "What's the point?" gets interrupted by another voice that goes, "Hold up, I've actually got stuff to do." You hear your name in a conversation, and instead of panicking, you just think, "All right, if it's about me, it's outdated anyway." You mess something up at work or in class, and instead of spiraling for 3 days, you just adjust, fix it, move on, like it's a speed bump, not a cliff. That's when you realize you're not playing the same character anymore. You used to be the person constantly overthinking every interaction, replaying every awkward moment from 3 years ago, like it's a Netflix series. Remember that? One weird comment, and your brain turned it into a 10-episode disaster. You sounded stupid. They think you're weird. They're laughing at you in the group chat. You'd sit there, phone in hand, heart racing, imagining whole storylines you had zero proof for, but you believed them anyway. What you didn't realize is that you were basically co-writing this script that painted you as clueless. They gave you a line. You turned it into a whole play. That stops when you flip the script. You start catching that voice mid-sentence. It goes, "They probably think," and you cut in, like, "You don't know what they think, and even if you did, why is that rent-free in your head?" You become your own unreliable narrator in the best possible way. You stop trusting every anxious thought like it's a fact. You start questioning it. You start asking, is this real or just my old identity trying to stay alive? That old version of you doesn't go quietly, by the way. It clings. It throws tantrums. It'll whisper things like, you're changing too fast. You're acting different. Who do you think you are? And that's the one that really hits, right? Who do you think you are? Because deep down, you've been scared of that question. You've lived like the answer had to be approved by everyone else first. You didn't pick your identity. It was assigned. You're the quiet one. You're the emotional one. You're not really leadership material. You're just not that type. You heard it enough times that you started reciting it back to yourself. Then on top of that, you played Clueless. You leaned into it. You made jokes about being slow, about not getting things, about being dumb, just to soften the blow before anyone else could use it against you. You insulted yourself first, hoping it would hurt less that way. It didn't. It just trained your brain to believe you were the joke. Flipping the script means you stop being the punchline. You can still laugh at yourself. You can still be playful, imperfect, human. But you watch very carefully what you say about you. You stop casually calling yourself stupid. You stop saying, I'm trash at everything. You stop labeling yourself with words that would destroy you if they came out of someone else's mouth. Imagine your younger self standing right in front of you. Same eyes, same face, same energy, just smaller. Would you look them in the eye and say, you're dumb, you're slow, you'll never get it, you're always behind? You wouldn't. You'd defend them. You'd fight anyone who talked to them that way. You've been loyal to everybody except you. That's what changes. You start talking to yourself like you talk to people you don't want to lose. You start saying things like, all right, we're learning, instead of, wow, you're useless. You say, this is new, instead of, I'm incapable. You say, I'm figuring it out, instead of, I'm clueless. Your brain hears all of it. It builds an identity off of every casual sentence you say about yourself. And once identity shifts, behavior follows. You're not going to act like a clueless extra in your own life. If, internally, you see yourself as the strategist, the observer, the one who quietly understands what everyone else is too loud to notice. You've always had that in you. That's why you noticed the room. That's why you saw what people did when they thought you weren't paying attention. You aren't clueless. You're hyper-aware. The problem is that hyper-awareness has mostly been turned outwards. You've been clocking everyone else's patterns and skipping your own. You know who texts dry. You know who never initiates. You know who guilt trips you. You know who shows up only when they need something. You have charts and graphs in your head on everyone's behavior, except your own. Flipping the script means you start watching yourself with that same clarity. You notice, I'm always exhausted after talking to this person. I start doubting myself every time I scroll this person's page. I procrastinate the hardest on the thing that actually matters to me. I feel small in this environment and bigger in that one. And instead of just observing, you adjust. You mute, unfollow, distance. You rearrange your environment on purpose. You move yourself out of roles that shrink you and into spaces that stretch you. You stop waiting for permission to leave a room that insults your existence. People will say you switched up. People will say you became too serious, too focused, too distant. All that recycled nonsense. What they really mean is, I liked you better when you didn't realize your value. Of course they did. You were easier to control, easier to overlook, easier to use as a comparison, a cushion for their ego. They could look at you and think, at least I'm doing better than them. You were their comfort zone. You stop being that. And yeah, it's uncomfortable at first. You're gonna feel guilty. You're gonna second guess it. You're gonna wonder if maybe you're being dramatic. You're not. You're just not playing Clueless anymore. You're not pretending you don't notice when someone keeps crossing your boundaries. You're not pretending you don't see the pattern when someone disappears every time you struggle. You're not pretending you don't feel drained when you leave certain spaces. You notice. You act on it. That's the shift. This isn't just mindset. This isn't just think positive nonsense. This is behavioral. Shh. Pause right there. Yeah, you feel that? That quiet panic in the air. That's the sound of a grown professional staring at a report that was supposed to explain you, and instead just broke reality. You already know what this is. You don't need confirmation. But they ran the file anyway. Private investigator, clean reputation, decades of pattern spotting, paid to reduce chaos into bullet points, paid to turn people into timelines, motives, weak spots, paid to explain. And the moment your name hit that desk, the whole system leaned forward like it finally caught something worth dissecting. They expected dirt. They expected trauma neatly labeled. They expected contradictions they could flatten into diagnoses. They expected a villain or a victim, or at least something they could understand. What they got back, instead, nothing that behaves. The report came back wrong. Not incomplete, not needs more data. Wrong in a way that makes professionals stop using words. Wrong in a way that makes people avoid eye contact. Wrong in a way that turns experts into cowards. Because you didn't resolve into a profile. You refused to. They followed your history like a blood trail, and it just vanished. Patterns appeared, then collapsed. Motives contradicted outcomes. Trauma that should have crippled you didn't. Success that should have softened you didn't. Failures that should have broken you somehow sharpened you. You didn't move like a saint. You didn't move like a psychopath. You didn't move like an angel or a demon. You moved like something that learned how to switch. That's when the room got quiet. Because here's the part they never say out loud. Systems don't fear evil. Systems understand evil. They can categorize it, predict it, contain it. What systems fear is duality. Someone who can be merciful without being weak. Someone who can be ruthless without being reckless. Someone who can smile while calculating outcomes 3 layers deep. Someone who survived pain without turning into a statistic or a cliche. You didn't become hardened. You became precise. That's why the report reads like a glitch. That's why the margins are filled with question marks instead of conclusions. That's why nobody wants to explain it. Because to explain you, they'd have to admit something terrifying. You're not driven by fear. You're not driven by approval. You're not driven by impulse. You're driven by adaptation. You learned when to be silent. You learned when to disappear. You learned when to let people underestimate you just long enough to ruin their confidence in reality. You learned how to look harmless while becoming inevitable. And that messes with people. Because most humans are linear. Hurt them once, they flinch forever. Praise them once, they chase it forever. Threaten them once, they fold forever. You didn't. Pain didn't make you loud. Pain didn't make you cruel. Pain made you strategic. You learned the terrain inside your own mind, the shadows, the instincts, the patience, the cold focus, and instead of denying it, you integrated it. You became the paradox they warn about but never expect to meet. The kind who can sit calmly in chaos. The kind who doesn't need to dominate a room to own it. The kind who lets people reveal themselves while you collect leverage without lifting a finger. That's why the investigator stalled. That's why the explanation never came. Because how do you explain someone who doesn't react the way they're supposed to? How do you explain someone who doesn't chase revenge, but also doesn't forgive foolishly? How do you explain someone who can walk away from power and also take it without blinking? You don't. You file it under anomaly. You quietly recommend no further contact. You change the subject. Because deep down, they felt it. They realized you're not dangerous because you're aggressive. You're dangerous because you're adaptive. You don't need chaos. Chaos happens when you're present. You don't need to threaten. Your absence creates unease. You don't need validation. Your silence rewires rooms. That's the part that terrifies them most. Not what you've done, not what you might do, but the fact that you're no longer predictable by pain. You evolved past the phase where suffering controls you. And when someone reaches that stage, there's no manual for dealing with them. So the report stays wrong. The explanation never comes. The professionals avoid the topic. And you keep moving. Calm, unbothered, unreadable. Not because you're hiding, but because you've already outgrown the language they use to describe people like you. And here's the part they'll never put on paper, never say into a recorder, never admit even to themselves. The moment that report came back wrong, they felt it in their body, a tightening, a hesitation, that quiet animal instinct that whispers, "This thing doesn't fit in the cage I brought." Because the truth is, you didn't just evade explanation, you reversed the lens. The investigator wasn't studying you anymore. You were studying them. You watched how their confidence leaked out of the room, how their tone shifted from clinical to careful, how questions turned into statements, and statements turned into silence. You didn't have to intimidate. Your existence did the work. Because you carry something most people lose early. The ability to stay composed while holding contradictions inside your chest. You don't need to resolve them. You don't need to justify them. You let them coexist, light and dark, mercy and severity, warmth and distance, until they become tools instead of conflicts. That's what broke the report. They wanted a single driving force. They wanted a wound they could point to and say, "This explains everything." But your pain didn't make you reckless. It didn't make you loud. It didn't make you sloppy. It taught you timing. It taught you restraint. It taught you how to wait without rotting. It taught you how to sharpen yourself quietly while others mistook your stillness for weakness. And here's the cruel irony they can't handle. You didn't become heartless. You became selective. You didn't lose empathy. You learned where to place it and where it would be wasted. That terrifies people who rely on emotional predictability. Because once someone can no longer guilt you, threaten you, or bait you, the usual levers stop working. You don't flinch when they raise their voice. You don't rush when they apply pressure. You don't crumble when they withhold approval. You observe. And observation is lethal to manipulators. That's why the explanations dried up. That's why nobody wants to talk about it now. Because the report didn't say you were broken. It implied something far worse. It implied you were self-contained, No obvious dependency, no exploitable desperation, no consistent emotional trigger they could press to make you behave. You've already been stripped down to nothing once. You've already rebuilt yourself without witnesses. You already know what it feels like to lose everything and still wake up breathing. So threats don't land the same anymore. And when someone realizes they can't scare you into submission or seduce you into compliance, they feel exposed, naked, outmatched. They start projecting. They start stalling. They start pretending the file never existed, because deep down, they sensed it. You're not chasing control. You are control, internal, portable, untouchable. You don't need certainty to move forward. You don't need permission to evolve. You don't need validation to act. You can walk into darkness without needing to call it evil. You can walk into light without needing to call yourself pure. You understand something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Power doesn't come from choosing one side. Power comes from knowing when to use which side. That's why the labels don't stick. That's why the timelines don't add up. That's why the conclusions contradict each other. Because you don't live in extremes. You command them. And once someone realizes that about you, they have two choices: study you honestly, or pretend you don't exist. Most choose silence. Because explaining you would mean admitting that pain doesn't always destroy people. Sometimes it forges them into something unrecognizable, something adaptive, something dangerous in the most controlled way possible. So the report stays wrong. And you keep walking forward, calm, measured, unreadable, not because you're hiding something, but because you've become something they were never trained to understand. And that's when the fear changes shape. Not loud fear, not panic, the quiet kind, the professional kind, the kind that makes people double-check locks they've never checked before, the kind that makes conversations end early, the kind that makes your name stop being spoken casually. Because at some point they realized something else that never made it into the report. You don't seek confrontation, but confrontation finds you when lies start collapsing. You don't expose people aggressively. You let them expose themselves by staying exactly who you are. That's what ruins the narrative. They wanted a cause and effect story. They wanted to say, this happened, so he became that. But you didn't follow the script. You took damage and didn't become bitter. You took loss and didn't become desperate. You took silence and didn't become invisible. You became aware, and awareness is a problem, because awareness can't be threatened into obedience. It can't be gaslit into confusion. It can't be rushed into mistakes. Awareness watches patterns instead of reacting to them. That's why the investigator hesitated, because the deeper they dug, the more it felt like you already knew what they were going to find. Not in an arrogant way, in a calm, grounded, unsettling way, like someone who has already stared into their own shadow long enough to stop being afraid of it. You don't deny the darkness in you. You trained it. You don't pretend to be harmless. You learned how to be controlled. And that distinction matters more than morality ever could, because people don't actually fear evil. They fear precision. They fear someone who knows exactly how far to go and exactly when to stop. Someone who doesn't explode under pressure, but compresses. Someone who doesn't lash out when cornered, but waits until the corner becomes leverage. Someone who doesn't need chaos, but can operate flawlessly inside it. That's why the explanations collapsed. Because if the report admitted what it was starting to suggest, it would mean rewriting a few uncomfortable truths. That pain doesn't always weaken people. that some minds adapt faster than systems can label them. That unpredictability isn't randomness, it's mastery of range. You can be warm, you can be cold, you can be silent, you can be surgical. And the terrifying part, you don't announce which version is about to show up. That makes people nervous in ways they can't articulate. Because how do you prepare for someone who doesn't need to dominate the room, but still controls the outcome? How do you manipulate someone who understands emotional mechanics better than you do? How do you threaten someone who has already survived their worst-case scenario? You don't. So they stop trying, they stall, they deflect. They say things like, "It's complicated," or "There's nothing conclusive," or "We need more time." But time doesn't help them, because while they're hesitating, you're integrating. Every betrayal refined your instincts. Every silence sharpened your perception. Every misjudgment taught you something about human behavior that no textbook covers. You learned that most people don't want truth. They want comfort. And the moment you stop providing comfort, they reveal who they really are. That's why you don't chase approval anymore. That's why flattery bounces off you. That's why intimidation feels hollow. You see the mechanics now. You see how fear moves through rooms. You see how power disguises insecurity. You see how authority panics when it can't predict. And because you see it, you're no longer trapped by it. That's what the report couldn't explain. You're not driven by rage. You're not driven by ego. You're not driven by revenge. You're driven by clarity. And clarity is dangerous, because clarity doesn't need noise. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need witnesses. It just moves. So the file stays unresolved. The conclusions stay vague. The professionals stay quiet. And you keep evolving past the language they use to define people, not hiding, not running, not attacking, just becoming more precise. And somewhere deep down, they understand it. The problem isn't that the report came back wrong. The problem is that it came back honest. And honesty was never something they knew how to deal with when it couldn't be controlled. And once that realization settles in, something irreversible happens on their side of the table. They stop asking who you are and start asking what phase you're in. Because now they understand you're not static. You're not finished. You're not done becoming. You're a moving variable, and moving variables terrify systems built on prediction. See, most people live in loops. Same reactions, same emotional reflexes, same self-sabotage, wearing different outfits. You break that pattern every time. Pain should have pushed you backward, and instead pulled something sharper out of you. You didn't numb yourself. You didn't drown yourself. You didn't implode. You metabolized pressure. And that's when the investigator realized the worst possible thing. There was no before version of you they could weaponize against the present one. No golden age to remind you of. No old identity to threaten you back into. You don't long for who you used to be. You outgrew them. That's why nostalgia doesn't work on you. That's why shame doesn't land. That's why reminders of your past failures feel irrelevant. You already integrated them. And when someone integrates their past, instead of running from it, they become unblackmailable on a psychological level. That's the quiet power they felt and couldn't explain. You don't react when people dig. You don't panic when they probe. You don't scramble to defend a narrative. You let them look. Because you know the deeper they go, the more confused they'll become. They expect guilt and find accountability. They expect trauma and find composure. They expect chaos and find structure. They expect a monster and find restraint. And restraint is unsettling, because restraint implies choice. It means you could do damage, but don't unless it's necessary. It means you could dominate, but prefer precision. It means you could expose, but wait for timing. That's when people start projecting their own shadows onto you. They call you cold because they can't read you. They call you dangerous because they can't control you. They call you arrogant because you don't seek approval. But none of that sticks, because you're not acting out of ego. You're acting out of alignment. And alignment is terrifying to people who live in contradiction. You don't need to prove you're right. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to win arguments. You let outcomes speak. And outcomes have a way of silencing rooms. That's why explanations stopped. That's why the report ended in ambiguity. That's why nobody wants to clarify what they found. Because clarity would force accountability. They'd have to admit that some people don't break under pressure. Some people don't become smaller after loss. Some people don't follow the emotional math that everyone relies on. Some people transmute pain into leverage. And once that truth is acknowledged, the entire hierarchy starts to wobble. Because if you can do it, then excuses stop working. So it's easier to call the report wrong, easier to shrug, easier to move on and pretend the anomaly doesn't exist. But you know better. You feel it when rooms shift as you enter. You hear it in the pauses between sentences. You notice how people over-explain themselves around you now. They sense you see more than you say, and you do. You see how fear dresses itself up as authority. You see how confidence cracks under scrutiny. You see how power leaks when it's forced. And because you see it, you don't rush. You let people show you exactly who they are. That's the evolution they never anticipated. You didn't become louder after suffering. You became clearer. You didn't become cruel. You became exact. You didn't become reckless. You became unpredictable by design. And unpredictability, real unpredictability, not chaos, is the last thing any system wants to face. Because systems are built to respond. They're helpless against someone who chooses when to move. So the report stays buried. The explanations stay unsaid. The discomfort stays unresolved. And you keep refining yourself in silence. Not seeking revenge, not chasing dominance, not proving anything, just evolving beyond the frameworks meant to contain people like you. And somewhere deep in their gut, they know it. The problem was never that the report came back wrong. The problem is that you came back uncontainable. And now every explanation feels like a lie they're too afraid to tell. And here's where it ends. Not with noise, not with fireworks, not with some dramatic reveal, but with something far more unsettling. Acceptance. Not theirs, yours. Because at some point, you stopped needing to be understood. You stopped needing the file to make sense. You stopped needing the explanation. You stopped needing anyone to get it. That's when the balance tipped. That's when you crossed the line most people never even see. You realized something brutal and freeing at the same time. Being misunderstood is not a weakness when misunderstanding protects your leverage. Confusion keeps people cautious. Silence keeps them guessing. Ambiguity keeps them honest, or exposes them when they aren't. You don't correct narratives anymore. You don't rush to clarify intentions. You don't fight misinterpretations. You let them sit in their discomfort, because you've learned that people reveal far more when they don't know where they stand with you. That's evolution. That's what pain carved into you. Not bitterness, not vengeance, but clarity without attachment. You can walk away without resentment. You can stay without dependency. You can confront without losing control. And that combination, that's rare. That's what breaks reports. That's what shuts mouths. That's what turns professionals quiet. They weren't prepared for someone who doesn't need the spotlight, but isn't afraid of it either. Someone who doesn't chase power, but doesn't flinch when it shows up. Someone who understands that dominance isn't loud, it's consistent. You didn't become a myth because you wanted to. You became one because nothing they threw at you worked the way it was supposed to. And now they feel it every time your name comes up. That subtle pause, that careful tone, that decision not to dig further. Because deep down, they understand something they'll never say. You're not a problem to be solved. You're not a risk to be managed. You're not a story to be finished. You're a variable they can't freeze. And the most dangerous thing about you, you're not angry about it. You're calm. You're focused. You're grounded in yourself. You've already faced the worst parts of you and didn't run. You've already lost what mattered and didn't disappear. You've already been underestimated and didn't correct it. So when the report came back wrong, and nobody wanted to explain it, that wasn't incompetence, that was instinct. Because explaining you would mean admitting that some people don't collapse under pressure. Some people recode themselves. And once that happens, there's nothing left to investigate.